Welcome to the Warband, a World of Warcraft podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Swaglock, and of course, with us today is your preferred host, Chicken.
Whoa, that was a little out of left field, man. You caught me off guard. I don't think I'm the preferred host.
You
I
should
think
see the
I
comments,
am...
man. You should see the comments and stuff.
What comments? What are you talking about? We both have access to the same comments.
Yeah, well,
wait, do we?
Do you check
we
them?
don't.
Do you check them on the iHeartRadio app?
No, I don't think I do.
Do people
wait,
who
what?
Yeah, do people who watch on Pocket Cast? They
on what?
Pocket Casts. It's a
Pocket
podcast platform.
Cast?
Yeah, it's a podcast platform. They actually overwhelmingly prefer you than me on the podcast.
I've never heard that. Pocket Cast?
Yep. Fun fact, you should check it out. Over there,
Pocket
huge chicken
Cast.
fans. Huge
I don't
chicken
believe
fans.
that, dude.
Yeah,
They're probably
true.
like, who's this chicken guy? Get him the frick out of here. He's a nerd. Plays too much of that WoW.
Anyways, dude, what have you been up to this week, man? There's so much in World of Warcraft for us to get into, but before you do, how's your week been, Chicken?
It's been pretty good. I mean, if you can't tell, it's definitely a little early where we are. It's exactly 4 a.m. on the West Coast, which means it's 7 a.m. on the East Coast.
Yeah, it ain't 4 a.m. here.
Tell there's a little rasp in our voice. That's because we've been busy in our personal lives this week, and I get that. And hey, sometimes you just got to get up in the morning, even though I've been up for like 2 hours already, and you got to film a podcast. So
that's true.
It's been pretty good. I mean, we're going into the Christmas week, big holiday week, spend a lot of time with family. I get some time off work. I typically grind WoW a little more those weeks. And I got one goal in the next month, baby. It's my portals, man. That's the only thing I'm playing for. Hey, I'll probably need it because I've already determined that there's no way I'm going to get Siege with me tanking. Like, I will not tank that dungeon. I will not do it.
Well, here's the thing. Siege is like my specialty now. So I got you. I like, yeah, dude, I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good at Siege. I'm pretty good at Siege now. I like Siege.
I feel pretty good in every other dungeon other than Siege. I only need 4. I would need 3, but the Stone Vault, oh my goodness, dude. I kind of blame myself a little bit. We easily were going to time that dungeon, and we went into the last boss room. We pulled one of the packs, and I've seen a lot of people pull them back in the hallway, but I was like, I don't want to do that because I feel like that just takes more work. Yeah. So we just did it in the dungeon. The healer got bounced back into the other pack, and we pulled both packs. We all died. Group wipe. Cost us like 2 minutes, and we didn't time the dungeon. And we were like 30 seconds over time. So I know we would have timed that dungeon.
Yep.
And I was like, So I blame
about
myself a little
the wing up to like the final boss?
Yeah, it was literally the room of the final boss where you have those 2 guys that are casting the storm totems, and then you have the big rock dude that pushes everyone back. Everyone pulls them out into the hallway, the first pack, and then the second pack they just take in the room. But I was like, nah, like, come on, guys, this is a 10. Like, you should know where to place yourself in this dungeon that you don't get pushed back into the other pack.
Yep.
Or maybe if you're just like, no, you're bad, then I'd probably believe you.
I do think most groups, I used to run in, and it almost never went well when you run in the room. Almost never goes well. Somebody screws it up.
Goodness.
So I just pull them all out now. I just pull them out of the room. It's
both packs?
No, I pull the first pack out. I pull the first pack out of the room, and I think I usually run in. I usually run in for the second. I'm trying to remember now. If I was there in the moment, my muscle memory would take over. But I was
like, pull both packs. That's some god tier stuff.
Okay, so
man.
speaking of big packs and Stone Vault, or big pulls in Stone Vault, when you're tanking Stone Vault, what do you do for the first hallway?
The first hallway?
Do you do like the big chonker, like pull everything?
It depends on what we decided as a group. If it's a 10, that's the first question I ask when I get into Stone Vault. Like, hey, you want to pull big or do you want to lust first boss? Which I'm okay with either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Typically, I'm more of a lust kind of right at the beginning. That way, you definitely have it for the council fight, because I think that's the more needed lust.
Yeah. Dude, there's nothing I love more than running that hallway, popping like a dancing rune weapon, and just pulling everything. And like when you survive, you're like, oh, that feels so epic.
Yeah, and that's what we did that run. And I even said, I was like, hey, I'm gonna pull big, like make sure you lust the first pack, and we did not lust. And I definitely purged, and I didn't die. I was really shocked that I didn't die. I thought I was going to. And I was like, okay. Yeah, dude. I was like, this dungeon is not going great. And then it went really well. And that council fight, like, sometimes you just get like blessed with that council fight where you literally stand on the same like furnace pad and it always goes to the other. Like, we did not move that entire fight. Like, I don't know what. Like, that could have been like the greatest run of Stone Vault ever. And then that one little mishap. And
yeah,
here I am, still needing that key done.
No, that's awesome. So, yeah, I mean, Stone Vault's not too bad. I can run that too with you but it sounds like you've got that one locked down. What actually my fear in Stone Vault, and I think maybe I've talked about on the podcast already, so I'm not going to go into it. My fear in Stone Vault is the first boss has that tank buster, and the tank buster is tied to a healer mechanic. And so if your healer doesn't do the mechanic, you're dead. And so I have like 2 weak auras I've made that like one of them tells the healer to shield me, like when to shield me, and then the other one lets me know if I have the shield. And that way if I see my shield bar pop up early, I know that I'll need the shield, or like, because a lot of times it'll dispel like almost immediately after it goes off, or I will or if I don't see my shield bar pop up at all and it's not in time for the hit, then at least I know then I have to pop a defensive or 2. So that way I have like both bases covered, like remind them, but just in case, I'm good.
Yeah. And I do have that weak aura, and it's definitely helped. The latter one actually helped a lot the one day. The healer was just dispelling a little too fast, and I said, hey, like, wait. And I, like, mid-fight, I was like, hey, wait 1 more second to dispel, and it, like, perfectly timed it. But this one, like, he didn't even dispel me once. But I survived. I have no idea how.
Dude, it gets scary. You're, like, stacking defensives. You're like, will 2 defensives solve this one?
And I just like death strike like 10 times when the defensive comes out. I'm just like bam, 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 bam. Yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like ridiculous.
Dude, speaking of tanking, did you see this week that they buffed tank threat by 22%?
Yeah, dude. That was like, I don't know about you, but I feel like that was kind of needed. Like, I feel like I can never grab packs like I used to in Dragonflight. I like. For me, I thought like I was like, maybe I'm just like bad at the game. Like maybe I'm just like really struggling this expansion. Like I'm not gonna like think too much of it. And then that came out, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought. Maybe they just I don't know. Like I don't know what happened, but it seems like something definitely happened between Dragonflight and here.
Yeah, Blizzard has this like thing, and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. But Blizzard like deeply believes that tanking needs to be really hard. For whatever reason, every time a new expansion comes out at the start of the expansion, tanking is kind of like in the pits. Dragonflight wasn't too bad. I mean, it still wasn't great season 1, but it wasn't the worst. Shadowlands season 1 was horrendous for tanking. It's bad again right now in the War Within.
Yeah, it's not easy.
But for whatever reason, they just believe tanking needs to be super hard, so they nerfed tank threat, and I think for multiple things, right? So they nerfed tank threat because in their mind they're probably like, oh hey, if threat's too easy, they're just gonna kite everything. Because right now, if you try to kite your paladin spams all their combos, then all of a sudden, oh well, no more kiting. I'm 3 miles away and my team has aggro.
Yeah,
right. So like they kind of slow down kiting that way, as well as like just other things. I think maybe part of it too is they don't want you to be able to pull as big easily, right? Because they're like. A lot of their changes seem to be that they don't like. Apparently, Blizzard does not like when people do big chunky pulls. I'm sure they look at that first hallway pull and they're like, "Oh no, that's not good." They're pulling three packs in one pull. We want them to only do 1 pack at a time, maybe 2. But then it's just again though. There's something that's just fun. There's something just fun.
I mean, that's the enjoyment of WoW, right? Like it's like we talked last week. Like if the 5 was the highest that you're gonna do, like the meta would be like, hey, can I just like literally just nonstop, like pull damage this entire dungeon, right?
Yep.
So yeah, and it's kind of funny you mentioned that. I feel like it almost switches. Like at the beginning of the expansion, they like are really hating on tanks, and then towards the end, they're just hating on healers, or they're just hating on healers all the time.
They're hating on healers all the time. I mean, why? Right? And it's funny to me because there is a shortage of tanks and healers in the game.
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they keep trying to make those two roles harder and harder and harder. And you're like, why can't you just make them fun?
Right.
And when we and I think we might talk about today. I don't know if we will or not, but there was the like leak. I put in quotes. I don't believe it. Leak about more classes and like more tank roles potentially, and people being like, "Yes, we need more tanks. We don't have enough tanks. We need to get more tanks in WoW." Right? Like
plenty of tanks, dude.
And I'm like, and part of it's like, yeah, if you add in a new spec, people are going to want to try it. But the people that want to try it are tanks. It's the people who are already tanking, right? Like usually somebody trying out a tank spec is trying out a tank spec because they're already a tank. They're already tanking. Most tanks, I think, are multi-classing pretty hard. So they're like, oh, I'll tank on like 4 different tanks, and that way, then whichever one's like meta next season, that's just the one I play. I don't do that personally. I just really like Blood DK, but I still, even still, you know me, dude. I got all tank, right? I got every possible tank spec I have as an alt. I like
you literally only play tank, except like once in a blue moon you're like, I'm gonna heal, and then I feel like you only do that for like a couple weeks, and then you're like, that's just not me. I'm going back to tanking.
Well, I think the hard thing is like when there's an irony to this, right? I play my healer, and I like playing my healer, but I'm almost always like pugging groups with my healer because like I'll look at the guild and be like, hey, who wants to run a key? And then guess what? There's no tanks, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll go tank.
Yeah, people are like, Swag, we don't need you to heal. We need you to tank. Like we have plenty of healers in the guild. We need you to tank, buddy.
Well, because I'll look at the roster and I'll be like, okay, you know what? Like that's all right. There's a healer online, and I see a bunch of DPS online. Well, I'm gonna grab my monk instead, and then like I'll run with my monk, and it'll all work out. It is interesting, and you know what I was thinking about the other day? I think I heard on a podcast, but it was like briefly touched on. They didn't really go into it much, but I never thought about it. But like, you only can have 2 tanks for a raid team, right? And that's like 20 to 30 people, depending if you're doing like mythic, right? Mythic, you're locked in at exactly 20. But a lot of people, I think, heroic raid, normal raid, LFR raid, and those are not capped in the same manner. And so you have like what? Like, let's say two tanks, like, and then but there's 30 people total, right? So then you have 28 other players. So now you're looking at groups, and it's a 1-to-5 ratio, not a 1-to-15 ratio. And so I do think like sometimes some of the game design even like doesn't encourage you to play tanks, because let's say you're a tank and you're finding groups, right? Because I think the issue would be if we had enough tanks that every time you queued up in the group finder, you had exactly, let's say you're a DPS, you queue up in the group finder, and the moment you queue up, you get exactly 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS queuing up, because that's just, it perfectly works out that way that everybody's able to get into groups. Now all of a sudden, you have too many tanks for raids, and raid teams are turning around going like, oh no, we don't have room for you. We don't. And I think that's some of it, right? Like I think of our guild, right? And like we've definitely had a few people join and are like, hey, I'm interested in tanking for raid, and we're like, oh, that's the one thing we don't have room for, right? So it is an interesting just thought process to think about.
Yeah, I think that kind of turns back to like the notion of just like I don't know if it's a personal opinion that we share. I don't think I've ever talked about this. I really think another thing with WoW is just like experiencing everything, and I think that's why I always try to dip into a little bit of everything, professions, all that kind of stuff. I think if you're a DPS Susie or a DPS Dan, that's all you ever do, just try tanking or healing. I mean, just go into an LFR. I really think that I think that you'd experience a different side of the game that you don't necessarily think that you would like, that I think you would actually enjoy. Because I think there's something And it doesn't have to be leading, because a tank isn't a leader. A tank is I would say maybe the head of the group, but I don't think they have to lead the group, right? And well, let's break that down. Maybe in different situations, but if you're just plugging a key, no. I think you would experience a different side of WoW, and I think that's basically what it comes down to is, hey, being prepared to play something that maybe you don't want to play. If you want to get into high-end content, if you don't want to, hey, play your DPS, play whatever. But I think if you want to be in high-end content, you have to be a little flexible.
Oh, absolutely. Especially as you find groups to get friends together. I will say, though, tanking is like intimidating compared to, I mean, healing is also intimidating for sure. I think both of them are intimidating compared to DPS. DPS is interesting because, and not to put down DPS, because your rotations are actually really tough. Like, that's part of the reason. That's part of the reason why I don't DPS. Is there's a complexity of the DPS rotations that actually, like, I kind of struggle with, and I think I get too distracted too easily, and I just want to smack buttons. And so tanking to me is more fun because it's so reactionary. I go, oh, this is coming up. Let me pop a defensive and then see how I stay alive, right? Whereas DPS is like you have to like have your rotation down pat. Be thinking about cooldowns, right? My rotation is like Heart Strike, Death Strike, Heart Strike, Death Strike, Heart Strike, Death Strike, Icebound Fortitude, right? Like, I don't know. That's not true. It is more complex than that, right? I'm trying to spend Bone Shield so I can pop Dancing Green Weapon faster and stuff like that. But it's just a different play style. However, to give credit to people for not tanking, there is this level, like, you join a group and all of a sudden, right? Like, what's the first question they ask you? Where do you want lust? I don't know. Yeah. Don't tell me where I want lust, dude. You are the guy who has lust. I picked a class that doesn't have lust. I don't want to think about that. I'm not sitting there like, hey, mage, here's where you should use ice block, right? Like, I mean, now granted, the question they're asking is like, hey, do you have any big pulls that you're doing? If not, we'll save it for a boss, right? Like, I get why the question's there. It's teamwork. It is teamwork. So
it is, yeah, and that's kind of the other question of like kind of like owning what your spec has, right? Like if you're a tank, like your job is to basically take the brunt of everything, right?
But in asking that question, they're also going, hey, tank, you're in charge of where we're going.
Yeah, no, I get that. Right? Yeah.
So as the tank now, all of a sudden you're the like the driver. You're the driver of the group. Yeah. You're determining the route that you're taking, how you're pulling. You're in charge of assessing what your group's doing. And people don't think about this, but as a tank, that first pull or two, now Stone Vault's a little questionable because that first pull is wild. But in other dungeons, that first pull you do, you're assessing, and you're like, okay, this is like, I'm looking at the details meter. I'm going, this is how my damage healer's doing. This is how my healer's doing. Right? I'm watching health bars. Are health bars being consistently kept full, or like, is it kind of a struggle? And then I'm changing the routes that we're doing, or I'm changing how I'm pulling or where I'm pulling. Like sometimes I get in a group, I'm like, oh, this group is not it for this key. And all of a sudden, I'm like pulling packs around corners that don't need to be pulled around corners normally, but I'm doing everything I can to just like make it as easy as possible. So you're kind of in charge for leading your team in that capacity, right? Like, you're not the leader, but everybody's kind of looking at you.
Everybody is looking at you like you're the leader. Yeah.
And the problem with being a leader, though, the big issue with being a leader is when leaders fail, everybody fails, right? Like, when a leader fails, the whole team fails. And so as a tank, right? Like, if you miss one defensive, right? Especially on trash right now, trash hits so hard. Stupidly hard. You take one hit too many, you pop a defensive incorrectly, you don't have a cooldown ready to go, and all of a sudden everybody's dead. Everybody in the group dies. They're all frustrated because their CDs just got blown, right? So their CDs are gone. If it's a plus 10, right, that is a lot more time off the timer. That's like at least a minute something off the timer, probably like minute 30, I think, or minute 20. 30, yep. If it's a 5-man group, maybe minute 20.
Well, probably closer to 2 minutes until you get back to where you were.
Oh yeah, right. Running, especially if it's Grim Batol, dude. That run, brutal.
Or like Stone Vault, yeah.
Or Stone Vault, yeah. So again, all that time shaved off the clock, just because one player one player dies. Now you could be like, well, no, that's because the whole group died. No. If the tank dies, everybody dies, right? So that's not always. Now there's plenty of times I've died and like the pack was like almost dead, and so I happened to be the only one who died. But the majority of the time, if I die, everybody dies, right? And so one player death, if we're being honest with ourselves, one player death is a 2-minute punishment on the clock. And
easily.
And so tank, like, that's why I'm always like, dude, tanking needs to be easier. And don't get me wrong, I like tanking. I love tanking. But I think for people to feel safe doing it, tanking needs to feel a little bit more like a DPS who's also responsible for keeping aggro on himself.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if easy is the word, maybe just more like user friendly, because I mean, I think you kind of hit the other nail on the head that, like, hey, DPSing isn't easy. Like, it isn't. Like, honestly, I think part of the reason why I've really picked up tanking, and it's not that tanking is easy, it's just the roles are shift, and that's kind of what you said. Like, it's less about like being the top performer. Like, hey, like, if you're a DPS, like, you've done this before, especially if you have details. And if you don't have details, install details, you nerd. And you're looking at that damage meter. If you're not the top, like, you're automatically just like, okay, like, I'm trash at this game. And that's a lot more pressure that you put on yourself when you're a DPS and less when you're a tank. Because if you're a tank and you're not the top of the DPS, who cares? If you're not the top of the heals, who cares? Are you alive? That's all that matters, right? And I think it kind of goes back to the notion of what you said, that like DPSing is still mad hard, and tanking is hard too, but in a different way. And I think
it's punishing. The punishment's punishing.
Worse. Yeah, that's actually like the best word for it, because I mean, you're right. When you're a tank, if you die, you're pretty much like insisting a group wipe. Like, there's no way that the group stays alive unless, like you said, there's like one or two like low health trash left or something.
Yeah, or like you happen to respawn right by where you died, and so they're just like kiting over to you, right? Like, you just see your whole team running.
You know, soulstone or like something, you know, something else, you know, they quick B-res you or something, right? I think I think you're really right in the point of, like, I think they just need to make expectations on tank a little better, and not just like the physical role of tank better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Anyways, this is our long-winded train that we had no intentions of talking about until we hit record.
I'm glad to know this week you've been trying to push for portals. That's awesome.
Dude, that's my last. I told myself, I was like, it's the only thing I want to do left this season. And I kind of copped out of this heroic push, and I'm like, I feel kind of bad about that. I still kind of want to do it, but I'm like, I really just need to focus on this and put my time towards this, because
we started that
a little bit.
Yeah, we started that heroic push on our alt, and dude, it's been hard. It's been hard. If it was just raiders who were raiding from our main attempt, right, our AOTC push, then I don't think it would be a difficult issue. But like, we also have a bunch of players who are brand new to raiding with us, which is awesome, and I'm glad they're there. But it really feels like Prague from ground zero again. It really, like, it's been going slow, and that's good. That's what we were looking for. However, at this point in the season, I just don't know how much people will put up with a slow push.
People don't want slow,
They want to speed through, which is a bummer, because I was hoping to just keep that experience. Right? There's something fun when you as a team figure something out. Granted, it's not as fun when you've already done it multiple times and figured it out, and now you're waiting on other people to figure it out. So that's the caveat. That's the trade-off there.
Yeah, there's new people in it, though, and it's fun to be patient. I generally like that approach, and why I was like, I kind of want to be involved in this, because people want to get AOTC, and I get that. And I'd rather them push towards it, because I think it's more meaningful for them if they get it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just being carried through it. It's like, I got carried through it, like, I got the achievement, like, cool. I think there's a lot more rewarding to it when it's like, hey, like I was actually involved in this, right?
Yep.
I did this, and not, hey, I was there for it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's kind of why I wanted to be involved in it, because I was like, oh, there's like a lot of new people trying to get in raiding, like they really want this, like, hey, I'm gonna bring an alt that maybe I don't feel super comfortable on, but I've been doing fairly well with balance. So
yeah, dude,
like, I was pretty
impressed. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, I'm getting there, but it's hard because I'm like, I have a fair amount of gold on my alt and I don't want to spend it. And I'm like, why would I spend this on an alt? I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's like, I don't want to spend gold on an alt that like I'm not going to play. Like, who even knows I'm going to play it again next season? Like, anyways.
Yep. Makes total sense.
So, yeah, I mean, we talked about there's just a lot going on in WoW, which is good for us because I feel like the last couple of weeks we've just kind of been, muddling along with the little bit of updates and trying to find stuff to talk about. But I don't think we have that problem this week. I think
they hit us with a lot
ton
of stuff
to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So have you played any of the 0.7 patch, like the Siren Isles?
I have. So I played through on my monk, and then I think I went in and started doing it on my shaman as well. Because it's a good ring. I mean, it's not.
It is.
I mean, it's not, but it is. But it's not. But
it is. Be. How's that?
It will be. I think this week, but we'll talk about that probably in a second. But I went over, and I'll say, you know what? It was fun. I've been playing Classic a bunch. I kind of slowed down on Classic, but I was doing Classic a bunch. I did a couple dungeons, so that made me happy. Got to tank some Classic dungeons on my Shaman, which is always fun. And I missed that Shaman tanking, dude. I missed it. So that was fun.
My goodness.
However, then I go back to retail. I hop on the Siren Isles, right? And in Classic, I'm like sitting there like auto attacking things to death, and now I'm on the Siren Isles, just like with a bar full of abilities that are proccing off each other, and I'm like, right. This is what it just felt like good, dude. It felt like just this huge power increase, because I've done dungeons, but mentally dungeons were just their own thing. I've like popped and done keys and stuff in retail when my friends have asked me to tank or something. But going back and doing some actual questing, I was like, oh yeah, this feels good. And so I was having a blast, bro. I know it sounds weird. I'm not normally a quest guy. I was having a good time running around the Siren Isles. I think part of it too, and I hate that I'm saying this because I don't want to give Blizzard ideas, I think it's better without flying. Now, it's a little bit of a pain. It's a little bit of pain having to run everywhere, like
I'll give
mount
it to
up.
you, yeah.
But dude, there's something nice about like, oh hey, I gotta go do this quest, and I'm not just immediately getting on the mount and like hopping over to where the next mob is, but I'm like searching around. I'm looking, right? Like, I don't know. It's different, and it's small. The zone's small, so like...
Oh, it's extremely small. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so you're not like... mounting up and riding somewhere isn't like a huge hassle.
Oh, no,
not at all. But it feels good. It feels good. I like it. Now, speaking of fast mounting, though, I did hear that the cars we're getting next patch are going to be like slightly faster than flying, but that's a whole nother conversation for later.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that.
Yeah, I got the ring. It's whatevs. It's whatevs right now. Hopefully with better gems, then it'll be better. But I've enjoyed it. I've actually liked. I don't know if you've done any of it, but I've actually enjoyed the Siren Isle so far.
Yeah. So similar to you, actually no, not similar to you. I started it on my main just because I was like, I don't want to like. I kind of just want to like go through and just like chop stuff up like a meat stick and not like realistically probably
my monk was I think 616 at the time or something. So
you're still pretty high.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. My shaman's struggling a little bit more to kill stuff.
So I did it on my main and I was like, personally I thought it felt really good, and the reason why I thought it felt really good probably is kind of a bust for some people. I just liked it because it was short. Like it was short, sweet, and to the point. It was like, hey, you go here, you get this ring, you do like one little quest line. It takes you like, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, and you get your ring, and then you got to go do these like short little things, and you get your gems, and you're basically done. Like it felt really fast, and that's what, like, it's kind of sad, but like, personally, that's what I liked. I know a lot of people are really upset because it's like, hey, like this 0.7 patch is like kind of a dud. Like there's really nothing to do outside of like maybe like a day or two's worth of content, if that, maybe like a couple hours worth of content.
Well, I think a lot of the Siren Isles, because I don't think they want to take up too much time getting the ring. In fact, if you do it on your alts, if you go in your alts, it literally just goes, "Do you want to skip this and get it?"
It just gives it to you.
They just give it to you, which is nice. That's what I did on my shaman. I just skipped it all, which is good. I think a lot of the Siren Isles though is the daily quests, right? Like going around, farming, trying to farm out the other crystals as they become available. I think the mobs are going to change on the Siren Isles, weekly or something. Maybe with the storm, maybe with the storm thing or something, they're going to change. I'm not totally sure how that works. However, that's part of the fun. Part of the fun is like coming back for like the little bit, right? I think the idea was like, hey, you're going to come back, maybe spend 30 minutes a week here, just trying to farm out, maybe an hour, maybe 2 hours a week, maybe trying to farm out the crystals. But then at the same time, there's lots of, I think, like pets and mounts and things that you can try and get there too. And so it's not just like, I know there's that one mount that Touchpad was talking about last week. I think one of our guildies got it already. He farmed it out. I've been thinking about it. I might go do it myself too. But there's just like cool things to go around and look for and do. And so I think that's pretty peak. I didn't want to feel like I had like a whole zone's worth of content that I had to do obligatorily, right? But a little place to collect some things, maybe get a powerful item. That's fun. That's cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. Yeah, at this point in the season, like I said, I mean, my main goal is to round out some of my mythic dungeon pools, and outside of that, like I don't want to spend like 2 or 3 hours doing content just to get like a ring that maybe increases my stats like a tiny little bit. And it's really just like a tiny little bit. Like I'm not even using the ring right now, and I think honestly they pushed out more gems faster than I think they wanted to because people were complaining that the ring was like garbo, which in my opinion, I think how they wanted to do it was okay, because I think their notion was, hey, like we don't want to drop all the gems at once. Like let's kind of rotate them out like weekly. That way you're not just like big and powerful right at the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, like that's cool, but like we don't want that, right? We want everything at the same time, right?
Yeah, well, I think part of it too, right, is like we're going to rotate through gems. Not that, hey, every gem, it becomes stronger and stronger. Every week you get stronger and stronger. But like, hey, these gems are all options, right? Each gem should be an option. But then they released it with the gems that were just absolutely right?
They were,
And so you have this patch that comes out, right? Again, part of the reason I didn't go over there on my DK yet, right? I think my DK is like 630 now. I love them. Right, I'm not walking onto the Dragon Isles or into the Siren Isles with my DK, picking up a ring that, while it looks like it's eye level 645 or something, it's actually statistically more like eye level like 580, right?
Yeah,
right.
Know,
like I don't know. For whatever reason, I think they were scared. I think they were scared that the ring was going to come out and then do two things. One, give such a power boost that like it screws up title dungeons, which I don't know, maybe they didn't even think about that, but I suspect it's part of their thought process. But two, I think after Dragonflight, when we got the amulet in Dragonflight, and that we went into season 2, and even in season 2 the amulet was still BIS for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, it was good.
And I think they wanted to avoid that. And my thing is like, okay, well then still make it good. Make it good. Like don't give me a piece of garbage. Make it good, and then just nerf it. Just nerf it a little bit going into season 2. I don't care, right? Just nerf it a little bit. Yeah, you don't have to nerf into the ground, but like, you know, it can still be good until you get like myth tracky or something.
Yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you. Yeah, it's in my opinion, as our notes say, it's a little sus.
Yep.
So, but yeah, so overall, I think honestly, I think I'd give Siren Isles like a solid A right now. Like, you know, it's enough content to hold us over for a little bit, you know. and kind of, give a new upgrade and some cool stuff. I still haven't seen the transmog option for the ring. I don't know if they're having issues with that.
Yeah, I looked. I remember I got the ring and I looked at my finger. I was like, "Where's that ring at?" Couldn't see it.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know. I even took my gloves off. I was like, maybe my gloves are doing it.
Yeah, no, I did that too, and I was like, maybe they're just having issues with it right now, or maybe it's bugged. So I was like, we'll figure it out at some point, right?
Yeah,
it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, I feel like I would give it a B. I'll give it a B. I think it's good content. By the way, though, it's free content, right? I mean, we pay subscription stuff, but this is middle of a season. We're getting a whole zone with a storyline. There's a lot of lore there. There's a lot of cool lore there in story, quests, things to do, power upgrades. Hopefully, right? Power upgrades, mounts, pets. I know there's new pet models there for hunters and stuff. However, I think having an item that's supposed to be this super powerful, exciting item, and then when you get it, it kind of actually sucks. I think that was a letdown, right? Because a lot of players went to the Siren Isles for that, and if they had gotten the ring and it felt even if it was oh hey, it's not quite there, but then I can increase the power more next week and it'll be there, that's fine. But the fact that it was hey, it's not quite there and it'll be weeks, plural, that's where I think it was missed. I don't know. I think overall, I think the gems we got this week should be stronger. Not just, hey, we wait for the strong ones. I think all the gems should have been stronger.
Oh, yeah, because all the gems were, pretty bad. And I think that's why they immediately were hey, we put out some more, and, these ones are okay. At least one of them is, I think, Abyss for most DPS. It's the blanket stats for all, for one of the sockets.
And it would have been fine. Agree. It would have been fine if, because I like the idea of, oh, hey, I mean, granted, I do and don't like the idea, but, right, if every week it was changing, which I don't like the idea because then you hop on an alt, you're like, crap, my alt now has to wait. But whatever. If it's a 3-week rotation, that's not the end of the world, right? That's not the end of the world. Mm-hmm. But if it was oh, hey, any of these gems would be an upgrade over Myth Track gear, okay, awesome. That's great. And then this 1 week out of a 3-week rotation happens to have a gem that's even more BIS for you, awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Even better, right? But the fact that it was hey, either it's a small upgrade for you or it's absolute garbage that you would never touch is weird, that is a weird gap, right? Because I think somebody was doing the numbers and they're like, oh, it's 580. I'm like, what? It's a 580 eye level kind of comparison? That's weird. But anyways, that's the Siren Isles. Overall though, if the ring wasn't a part of it, I mean, would I have gone there if the ring wasn't a part of it? I don't know. Maybe not. However, the ring is a part of it, and so, but the Isles themselves are cool. I like the Isles, and by the way, I like that the goblins are there. I know a little bit of lore in me, but I like that the goblins are there because it kind of helps us move into the next patch. So that feels good.
Yeah, which I mean, I think that's going to be the core of our podcast. Probably the rest of the podcast is what we'll talk about, these leaks and confirmations. I think most of them were confirmations. I think 1 or 2 of them is leaks.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, I think we got a ton of information on the next season, and I have some mixed opinions. I don't know what your first thoughts are.
By the way, even the leaks are pretty good. Because these leaks are coming from PTR stuff.
Yeah,
so that's a little bit different, right? That's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about leaks with WoW, it's they're not most leaks are this is going to happen. It's not oh, this is a leak that we found that might happen and then it never does. Typically, that's 1 in a million.
Dude, who is it on YouTube? Who's on YouTube? There's that guy. Is it Doran's Movies? I think Doran's Movies. You've probably never watched him because he talks lore a lot, or playable races or cities. His 3 things are lore, playable races, cities. Right? Those are 3 things he talks about. And by the way, I love his videos. If you watch our podcast, Doran's, let me know. I'll let you on the podcast anytime. Big fan here. Big fan. However, what I'm about to say, dude, the dude is right maybe 10%, maybe 5% of the time.
Oh, dang.
But again, when you're a content creator, right, who specializes in like, oh, hey, Blizzard might be hinting that this is what's next, right? Like, you gotta have weekly content, right? And you know what? He does such a good, enticing job at it that I don't even care, right? Like, I'm just like in it. Horses as the next playable race. Let's go, right?
Oh my gosh.
Let's go. That's happening. The human horses are rebelling against their owners. I'm in. But the reason why I bring that up though is because leaks in WoW usually come from like people checking the PTR and being like, "Oh, we saw this thing on the PTR." However, we didn't get a chance to talk about last week, so we're a little late to the conversation. But just to touch on it briefly, there was that class survey that was cycling around for a minute. I know Bellular did the video, and at the beginning of the video, he's like, "We have no reason to believe that this is fake." Here's the thing. I'm calling it now. That was fake. I'm calling it now. Sorry, Bellular. Dude, that was...
Do you think?
Yo, 100%. If you, like, look at the... I mean, there's a lot of reasons to think that it's fake. One, some of the classes don't even really make sense in, like, context. Like, the gunslinger classes, like... No, Blizzard's not going to just suddenly add pistols in, right? And then like make a melee,
hunter, right?
Make a melee pistol class, right?
Isn't that basically just like a hunter?
Yeah, kind of, right? Like you already have only one class uses ranged weapons at the moment. If you really like, just use
ranged
the same.
Weapons, you mean guns?
Guns, bows, crossbows, right?
Yeah.
And
you said ranged weapons. Like I consider a staff a ranged weapon, right?
Well, you're not casting from your staff, right? You're casting from your hands as a player.
Yeah,
wands,
okay.
Wands,
I see what you're saying.
Wands would be a ranged weapon, I guess, technically.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anybody still auto-attacks with wands anymore or not.
Oh, my gosh.
However...
No, I see what you're saying.
However, right, guns, crossbows, bows. And there's only one like class that uses them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made another one. But they're probably not making a whole extra like weapon type just to make a melee ranged pistol wielder, right? I mean, you could probably flavor Outlaw Rogue to be like that, and that was the majority. That was the majority of the classes on there, were things that you're like, wait a second, this already exists in World of Warcraft. Like you could just insert class name into or spec name into the. I'm like looking it up right now, to see if I can find the actual like pieces, but you read into it and you're like, wait a second, this is just a a boomkin. This is just a balance druid right here.
This is just a mage,
right? So sorcerer. The astrologian, right, was all about like using like the stars and like planetary power and celestial power. And I'm like, that's boomkin. That's boomkin. That's you're just describing a balance druid right there.
100%.
I'm trying to find the actual. I think it was
Didn't they say like sorcerer?
I found it on MMO Champion, right? So astrologian. I'm gonna insert boomkin into this, and you tell me if it makes sense. All right, mighty balance druids that use the cosmic powers of the stars and gravity to deal devastating damage. They utilize celestial energies that cast spells, manipulate gravitational fields, summon meteor swarms, and create star explosions. The gravity one is maybe like questionable there, but like everything else is it already exists. It's already a thing. It's already a thing, right?
That's 100% just
battle mage. Battle mages empower their weapons with the might of elements to aid their allies, weaken foes, and create constructs to control the battlefield. Let me rephrase this. Shamans empower their weapons with the might of the elements to aid their allies, weaken foes, and create constructs to control the battlefield.
Yeah, that is pretty much a shaman, yeah.
It's a shaman, yeah. And then some of them, like, people are hyped over the tinker idea, but tinkers have,
dude, 100%.
People have been asking for tinkers for forever. So it's not even, like, a new thing. Necromancer.
I think that would be the coolest role.
Necromancer is a tough one, because the problem with Necromancer, and the reason why they've never really added it into WoW, is that Demonology Warlock and Death Knights kind of already filled that role. Right now, Death Knights aren't a caster type, but Demo Warlock is, right? Demo Warlock is.
Yeah, Demo is, yeah.
So what does a Necromancer ultimately offer that, like, others, the others can't, right? It's just like, Oh, here's one. Ley Weaver. Ley Weavers are connected via ley lines to the natural powers of Azeroth. Their connection to these arcane power lines allow them to move quickly along them and to manipulate these unseen energies that flow through everything. They help allies deal damage to enemies or buff and debuff as wanted. That's just a mage. That's an arcane mage. That's an arcane mage. The ley lines in lore already. That's where they draw their power from. Is the ley lines around Azeroth?
Yeah, dude. That. Now that you're saying it out loud is fake, I kind of questioned you at the beginning. I was like, "Are you sure that's fake? That seems kind of real."
Yeah.
But no, there's no way. The only thing that's out of that would be like a tinker, like artificer role, which I think 100% they should add. I think they could do a ton with that.
And by the way, and one day maybe we'll do a bigger episode on this. I would love if they ever added ally classes into the game, kind of like ally races. They have to come up with a better name. But like for example, let's say Spellbreaker, or you could do Battle Mage or Spellbreaker, right? The Spellbreaker description is melee characters specialized in the combat against magical powers. They ward magic, but they can also empower their gear with magic of enemies. We kind of have Spellbreakers. We also call them Mage Knights, Battle Mages, whatever you want to call them. They kind of do exist in WoW lore. That's theoretically what's guarding Silvermoon City. But when you look into the way they operate, it would be so stinking similar to Paladin. Right, like in terms of gameplay. And so in my mind, I'm like, what if you just took a paladin and you reskinned it, right? And so you're like, hey, you know what? It's a battle mage now, and the frost spec is its defensive spec, right? It's all about like creating like armor out of ice, right? And then fire kind of replaces ret, right? Fire replaces ret spec, and then you could do like an arcane time-based magic that replaces holy. And all of a sudden, it plays exactly the same as Paladin. Exactly, like no difference whatsoever, outside of maybe the flavor text, and the visuals, right? So if you're playing Prot Pally, instead of like big old like gold shields popping up, now it's like ice blue shields popping up, right? Like whatever. And now all of a sudden, you have an alternate class fantasy. But it's its own you're right, like, but it's not the same, but it plays the same. So Blizzard doesn't have to do any balancing, like no balancing whatsoever. Like what if, and this one's more controversial. But what if Tinker was just a reskin of Druid?
No, stop.
Yeah, right. Think about it. Okay, but think about it, right? You take Bear, and you just literally make it a tank. Like just you hop in a tank, you transform into a tank, right? Like you as a tinker get in a tank, and then all your moves are basically the same, just reworked as a tank, right? Or like some like what?
You're hurting me, man.
Right? Or you go into like cat form, right? But instead of being a cat, now like you're some type of like more offensive, like slim, like kind of. Thing. That one's a little bit tougher. To pull off, but you could do it, right? You could have them. We know Tinkers ride on machines all the time. We saw in Gnomeregan plenty, right? So you could kind of do something like that. You could take Boomkin and be like, yeah, dude, we're shooting lasers now, right? We got guns, we got cannons that shoot lasers. I don't know, right? And all of a sudden you take that. Now that one's a little bit harder to pull off, but that could be a way that Blizzard could say, hey, yeah, we're adding these extra flavors into classes. But not requiring us to add in like 3 more specs, right? Because what are they at right now? Are they at like 36? Is it 36 specs in the game or something like that? Mm-hmm. And balancing all of that, dude. Props to Blizzard for balancing that.
Yeah, no, it's a lot. No, you're just hurting me, man. I got high hopes that they'll add like an artificer role. I think artificer could be the first range tank. I have ideas for it, and we could talk about it one day, but. I think Artificer could be the first range tank, and I think it would be lit. Like, I think...
trouble with like a range tank. Trouble with range tank is do you run into the problem that, like, people are having early with Presevoker, where, like, the range of Presevoker for healing was just so bad that, like, people are like, oh, crap, this isn't fun, right? I don't know. Range tanking would be an interesting thing, because you'd be kiting a lot. You have to be kiting 24/7. And then that makes a lot of trash pulls really tough, right? Because then all of a sudden it's like, crap, this right. For example, that final pull in Stone Vault, right, where you're trying to like pull them out around the corner. You definitely couldn't go into the room, right, because you wouldn't have room to stay away.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's a whole different conversation for another podcast.
I think, yeah, dude, we'll have to talk about it sometime at some point. I think my dream of Artificer and range tanking, if I explained it to you in the way that I picture it, you'd probably be like, okay, that would be really good. And it's, yeah, anyways. But too much other things to talk about right now,
let's talk about the thing. Dude, we're slowly running out of time, and we haven't even talked about the main topic that we wanted to discuss today.
Dude, come on.
Whoops.
Granted, there is a lot to talk about with this, and to be honest, I think most of the points are just going to be like, hey, it's just going to be quick, hey, you know, what are your thoughts on this? And there's so many 11.1 leaks and confirmations right now. I think the big ones to talk about would be obviously the tier sets, and maybe just some of the smaller changes with Gilded Crest from Delves and the keys and some of that kind of stuff. But let's start with tier sets. I think this season, and I don't know if they've ever done this in the past. I don't think they have, because tier sets aren't like super old, right? I think they started in like Shadowlands, right? Or is that wrong?
No. So tier sets have actually been around like for a super long time. I remember some form. There's been some form of tier sets almost forever in WoW.
Oh, interesting.
However, they got rid of them in the like BFA era.
Oh, okay.
And then we didn't have. Yeah, they got rid of them in BFA, I think, because I think they got like pretty overpowered in Legion, if I recall. I didn't play in Legion, but that's what I've heard. And then so in BFA they got rid of them, and then in Shadowlands at some point they brought them back because people were like, "What tier sets?" And even in Shadowlands, I mean, they had things that were similar, right? Like you were getting, remember in the second raid, not Sepulchre, Sanctum Domination.
Sanctum. Yep.
You would get those like gems that you would slot in, and it would like change how the gear worked. I remember that one being weirdly complex.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool. We got the new tier sets. I have thoughts, and I think my thoughts on the new tier sets are going to be different than yours. So I'm going to talk what I think visually,
really,
before we talk about like their actual tier abilities. Visually, I think they're sick looking, dude. They look awesome.
Yeah.
The monk one, bro, dude, it's freaking Super Saiyan. I want to get the monk one with the gold hair, and I can just run around Super Saiyan. However,
that is pretty cool.
However, I'm also kind of like, I feel like most raids, they theme the tier sets around the like raid aesthetic, right? Like,
yes,
most of the time they haven't done it as much this expansion, but previously that's what they did. They themed it around the raid, and I'm kind of bummed out that we got this really cool goblin themed raid with machines everywhere and crazy stuff going on, and like none of the tier sets are like machine themed at all in any capacity. That does, I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit bummed. I feel like we could have gotten the coolest tier sets of all time. But you know what? Blizzard still cooked with what they gave us, so I want to give them credit. I just wish maybe they held them off for like till the next season or something, because everything else this expansion or this season is so crazy goblin themed and fun, right? The cards and everything else, and then for the tier sets not to match. I mean, the tier sets abilities match thematically, but not their appearance.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. But I'll let you talk about the actual tier.
Oh, the actual tier set? Oh, you're not going to give your opinion on that? Just the aesthetic?
No. I want, because I'm going to differ from you, and so I want you to go first.
Are you sure?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, well, no, I think you pretty much know my opinion on it. So the tier sets are basically like a blanket, right? Mm-hmm. They're not like, I think they switch between ranged and melee DPS for the most part.
Yeah. So you have 4. You have tank, healer, ranged DPS, melee DPS.
Yeah, and it's all based around abilities that class already has. Like you brought up the difference between blood and vengeance demon hunter, and kind of how it's like, hey, vengeance gets metamorphosis and blood gets what we're considering to be icebound fortitude. We don't know
because they listed it in their official post as survival instincts, which is not not a TK defensive. I think it's a druid defensive.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. So they might change that, but I think Icebound Fortitude is one of the only ones that makes sense, unless they give us is it Blood Boil, which might almost seem
Blood Boil is your offensive AoE attack. It could be like Lichborn maybe, or Vampiric Blood. But it could be Vampiric Blood.
That's what I'm thinking of. Vampiric Blood, yes.
But I mean, dude, listen. I know people are like, well, it's not a pure defensive. Just give me Dancing Rune Weapon.
Dude, they're not going to give you that. That's way too OP.
They gave Demon Hunters meta. They gave Demon Hunters Metamorphosis. Okay,
well,
you can't give Demon Hunter Metamorphosis and then give me Icebound Fortitude. Nah. But anyways,
that's fair. I'll give you that one. Yeah. So back to that, it's basically, we have 4 blanket ones that are basically revolved around abilities that each class has, and it's kind of like proc as a specific thing. I think is lucky and some other things.
It is Icebound Fortitude. Looks like Wowhead or it looks like they fixed the post on the official
Blizzard.
Post. Yeah.
Okay. Well, confirmed. At least we know now.
Yeah, at least we know it's not. Part of me was almost like, are they just going to actually give me survival instincts? Is that like...
Yeah, that would be kind of weird.
Well, maybe they thought Icebound was too weak, right? I don't know.
I mean, it's basically like the same thing, though, right?
No. Wait, how much is Icebound for?
15%.
15 or
30? Is it 30? It's 15 or 30.
I think it might be 30. I think it might be 30%. Survival instincts, I think, is 50%.
Oh, dang.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah. Okay, well then, yeah, maybe that is pretty good.
You know what? Actually, give me the survival instincts instead.
Yeah, right. So yeah.
But Icebound also stops you from being like stunned.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. So, yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I'm on the fence about it, to be honest. I kind of like it in a way that it's like, everything is kind of similar. Like if, jump from alts, it's kind of like the same. But at the same time, like, I kind of like it when it's a little more specific for each class. But I guess it's not like crazy unspecific. Like it's still like has to do with abilities for each class. It's not like they're like, hey, we're just going to give I guess they kind of are giving every spec in the game like a new ability, this winning streak or luck of the draw. But it still kind of goes back to the class's original abilities and stuff. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think when they first announced it, I saw a bunch of like Twitter posts that were like, "This is the worst thing ever. This is terrible." And my instinct was also to be like, "Oh yeah, that's terrible." No, I didn't even like read it. I didn't even read it. I was just like, "Yeah, they're giving us all the same bonus. This is stupid. This is stupid."
I go with the crowd.
But the thing to keep in mind with tier sets is they're designed for both bonuses to work together, right?
Yes.
Not necessarily just the one, right? And so
yeah, that's true.
The thing with these tier sets is I actually don't think this would have been that much easier for Blizzard to design, right? Like I don't think this was actually that much easier, because they had to get creative with the 4 set in order to match it and keep the 4 set unique. I think instead what this does is as players makes it easier for us to comprehend all the tier sets. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think as players we actually go, oh, you're a melee, you get winning streak. How does your winning streak work, right? And then all of a sudden you kind of work from there. Makes it probably easier to jump classes with tier sets. What I will say though is the way they've done the 4 set bonuses really actually blend so well with it that I think a lot of these are really cool. The melee one isn't as cool, I think, as the range one. The range one seems really cool. Yeah. However, some melee ones are popping off. Like, dude, have you looked at the one for Unholy?
Oh yeah, I have. It seems pretty lit.
Yeah, especially like proccing off Death Coil. That gives you a really solid single target and AoE tier set kind of built into one. So like I would not be surprised if Unholy was way better than Frost next season. Depending on what Frost ends up looking like.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I can see it.
But I think Unholy is gonna be better. The tank ones are the only ones that I'm like not particularly super thrilled about.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what it is. I go both ways. On one hand, I'm like, dude, I don't want to be proccing random defensives. I like knowing. Yeah. I like knowing when I'm using my defensives. Now, granted, it's not wasting my cooldown, so it's not like it's gonna proc Icebound Fortitude and then now that's on cooldown, right? That would be the worst. Oh my gosh, dude, there'd be nothing worse than that. It's just giving me a free Icebound Fortitude every once in a while for 4 seconds.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that like it has the chance that it could proc in a moment when I would actually want to have a defensive up. In which case, then I save a defensive for another time, right? And I've made some weak auras to track my defensives now, so at least I would even know, right? Like if it procced Icebound Fortitude, I would know right away. Oh, Icebound Fortitude's up. It procced. That's good to know, right?
Pull an extra pack.
Right, pull an extra pack for 4 seconds. Maybe not. But at least I'd be
4
like,
seconds.
But maybe I'd be like, oh, hey, I was gonna pop this defensive. I'm not gonna pop this defensive now. Right?
Yeah.
So it could, like, it has its benefits there, but man, I feel like I would just rather have, like, I don't know, just give me some damage or something. I hate to say it that way, fair. But the problem is, like, damage is always gonna be good. You're never gonna be like, dang it, I proc damage, right? But I'm gonna be like, dude, I have literally one mob on me and I just procced.
Icebound Fortitude, yeah.
Whatever.
That's fair.
What is this doing? Like, what is this even doing?
That's a
There's
fair
no
point.
benefit, right? So I would say I would say like half the time Icebound Fortitude procs for me as a DK is probably not going to be beneficial. So that's my real complaint. But overall, the actual tier sets I think look pretty cool.
Yeah.
When you spend time looking at them individually, they look cool. Plus, they're also really themed. They're really themed around the whole goblin thing, right? Like winning streak, right? For DPS or melee. What is it for jackpot, right? You have jackpot for
jackpot. Yep.
Yeah, dude, jackpot looks pretty sick.
Jackpot and insurance.
Insurance
for healing.
Insurance is an interesting one. I'm like looking at some of the healers. I think it's gonna be a lot better for like, I don't know, some than others. Like priest might not benefit as much as maybe like a shaman, but that's whatever. I mean, kind of same thing with tanking, right? Giving me Icebound, like, and that's why I was like, dude, give me Dancing Rune Weapon instead of Icebound Fortitude, because like I can always use a random proc of Dancing Rune Weapon, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And what I would love is like, dude, just have it give me one. Don't even do the double. You don't even have to do the double weapons.
Yeah, that's true.
What would be cool is if I had Dancing Rune Weapon up and it procced again and just gave me a third, right? It was just like, oh well, you know what? I guess, right? Be like, oh, here's one more. Now you have 3 shovels in the air, right? I don't know. I would way prefer that, right? When I look at like Demon Hunter, right, getting Metamorphosis, it's just different. Now, granted, I will say though, the DK ones I think are also increasing your damage by not DK. I think the tank ones are increasing your damage by 15% for 8 seconds afterwards. So like, they are doing a little bit, but the problem is like when you just get like random damage increase like that, you don't feel it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you don't. Yeah,
15% isn't. Yeah.
Like if you gave me a Dancing Rune Weapon, I would feel it.
Yeah, you'd see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 4-set bonus is kind of interesting for blood too. Hitting, I'm just touch on it real quick. The Death Strike hitting 2 additional targets. Is that just going to deal damage to those 2 additional targets? Or are you going to heal from those 2 additional targets as well?
If it's anything like how it works with Dancing Rune Weapon, because right with Dancing Rune Weapon, you're hitting multiple Death Strikes off of your extra weapons. My gamble would be it's going to heal you as well. They were probably very intentional that they said Death Strike instead of Heart Strike, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they would have done Heart Strike if they just wanted damage.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So what I'll end up doing is I will based on how often this procs, I will probably be making like a weak aura or adding it to my CD's weak aura or something that lets me know as soon as I have luck of the draw. Right. And that way, when I have luck of the draw, I know, okay, I gotta use Death Strike to keep my health up because that's gonna be like major healing. That's gonna be major healing.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, let's like you said, we're always running out of time on this podcast. Always running out of time. Let's kind of touch on some of the lesser things, and then maybe we'll wrap up on what we probably would agree are some of the two bigger things.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the driving. I think that's kind of just a given. Like if you don't want people to fly, like you almost have to make the driving better, right?
Yeah, and I'm excited. They could have given us flying if they wanted to. I think they genuinely wanted to make something fun. And again, they wanted this whole zone sounds awesome. It feels so goblin-y, bro. So goblin-y, dude. I don't even have to re-roll to a goblin. No, I'm not going to. But
oh my goodness.
Like the driving being faster than flying. Now, what they said is like at like top speed. So I'm guessing you're not often hitting that top speed.
Probably not. No.
My gut tells me the best part about driving will probably be the experience of driving, just like dragon riding.
Oh yeah, it'll be the experience.
Where like dragon riding's fast and it's really convenient.
Yeah,
but I think what I love most about dragon riding is that I'll literally just log into the game and just fly around things while I'm figuring out what I want to do. Right? Like it's just fun. Like it feels good.
It's just fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be. I think it'll be a cool little touch, cool little add to it, and it's going to be one of those things that you just kind of go in and just drive around for like 10 or 15 minutes before you like load into a key or something, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about affix changes. I think there's just a couple affix changes, not anything crazy. I think they're getting rid of the one that gives you like the healing debuff and you have to like heal yourself back. I think they're just replacing that with something different because that one was kind of interesting.
That's for the better. That's for the better. The issue with that one, and I'm surprised, I think Blizzard knew it would have happened, but I think they were hoping it wouldn't. With that one, if I'm being honest with you, that one is a personal sorry, I'm dying over here. That one's a personal responsibility. Right? Like you should be using something to get rid of that.
Yeah.
However, so many groups, especially in lower keys, by the way, I don't think anybody in high keys is complaining about this one. Like when I run 10s, I don't think about it. I'm not thinking about it. But dude, if I run a 5, if I run a 4, nobody's doing anything about it. And so like
straight dying from it.
I'm getting rid of mine, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, you guys gonna do anything? And they're like, I don't know. They either don't know what to do, or they're just waiting on the healer. And I'm like, guys, your healer's got enough work already. All of you are standing in fire. Your healer's got enough work to do. Like, get rid of your friggin' heal absorb. Everybody has a way to do it. Everybody. I mean, maybe like warriors kind of annoying. And if you have one guy in your group who just like it's like you have one warrior like Fury warrior that like you're like it's the worst for them to like spec into this. Okay, fine. One person's okay.
Yeah, and that's a dispel, right? That's a healer or just like a big heal on them, right?
But I don't do anything lower than like a 6, probably, if even. Maybe lower than 8. I probably don't do anything lower than 8 on weeks when that affix is live.
Oh yeah, because it's
dude. You know how many bosses you'll go fight, and nobody gets rid of their thing, and you're just watching that boss health go up, and you're like, never mind, I'm done. I also think affixes that give enemies more health, like heal enemies, are stupid. So this can go wherever Sanguine went.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so just some minor affix changes. There's some. I didn't read too much into this, and maybe it's just like a quick talking point, or maybe we can talk about it more.
Yeah,
something about Dinars returning on the raid track. I don't know if
yes. I haven't done a ton of research. I've just heard talk of it, but from what I understand, is that we're gonna have a renown for the raid. So there's gonna be like a renown track for the raid.
Yeah.
And in that and I think in that renown track is kind of some built-in stuff. So some dinars built into there. I believe that's how they're probably gonna end up doing the power increases each week, kind of like how we right now every other week we can get the extra like 1% damage increase or something. That's I think gonna be built into that renown track. I don't know how to farm that renown. I think just doing the raid is how you get it. I think that's what it is. I think just doing the raid gets you the renown. However, from what I understand, the dinars are very late into the season. Very late. Like, I I could be wrong on this, but I think at this point in the season that we're at now, they still would not be available.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's really like, oh, hey, late in the season, you're working on alts and you just need to get some gear real quick. Here's some dinars.
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
That doesn't seem like it's too earth shattering.
No,
to be honest.
And here's the thing: dinars are fun in like a season 4 when like everybody's burnt out on that expansion already. You're not doing anything new, right? Like the raids are not new; they're previously done raids before. You've already done them, and you're just like, you know what? One season where gear is just super easy to get. Let's be busted good, right? That's fun. When that's every season, it's not the same. I'm sorry, it's not the same.
No, you're right.
And guess what? If you're listening right now, you don't have to have BIS gear. BIS gear is BIS, and that's awesome. But it's not required. All right, like
that's why there's always substitutes, man.
It's okay if you don't have BIS. I feel like sometimes people look at a BIS list and they go, "I can't play the game unless I have all of this."
I can't be good unless I have that. No, that's fair.
Yeah,
hey, I can get like that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah.
So they, I feel like we could talk about this for a lot longer, and maybe we will at some point. But maybe we should kind of, well, no, let's just mention it about the AUG no longer helping tank and healer for Ebb and Might.
Yeah.
Do you think that's like, do you think that's pretty detrimental? I think when I first read that, I was like, oh my gosh, like AUG is going to be garbage now. Like,
yeah. I mean, so there's a couple things going on. There's a couple things going on here. One, we just complained that tanking and healing is too hard and people don't want to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does Blizzard come back and do? Oh, you know what? The one class that helps make tanking a little bit easier, healing a little bit easier. Let's remove that. Let's get rid of that. Never mind. I think it'll probably be worse for tanks, right? Because right, because they'll still be AUGs will still be doing some healing anyways. However, the big thing with this one that I think I've talked about on the podcast before, but maybe I haven't. It's hard to tell what I talk about on podcast or what I'm talking about on Twitch.
Oh,
which, by the way, a little plug here. Follow me on Twitch if you ever want to hang out. What is tough here is that like if I'm doing a 10 key or under, I'm not inviting an AUG.
Yeah,
I'm not doing.
Yeah,
I mean, I might.
Yeah.
I might. I'm not gonna say I won't. I'm not gonna say I won't because I do. I still do sometimes. If somebody queues up and their gear looks great, their rating looks great, I'll take them. I'm not really spec.
Yeah.
I'll look for certain abilities. I'll be like, oh, I gotta make sure I have my lust, and let me make sure I have one more battle res because usually I'm the battle res and I'm the tank. So I'm like, let me have one more just in case I go down. That like somebody can get me up. However, AUG, the thing about AUG that's so interesting is in lower keys, it's not that useful because you're really you're really not dying from having too much damage. So in the lower key range, you want to be doing damage. Like doing damage is so critical. It's in the high keys, in the title key pushing, right? Like once you hit that 12 and up, AUG starts to feel mandatory because everything hits so hard that the only way that you can start juicing out that little bit of extra like time is to or not dying, right? Is to get an AUG in your group, so everybody's just tankier. Like everybody's just tankier. And so the problem here though is now all of a sudden, if this nerf right is too big, if tanks are now struggling in keys,
higher keys,
and higher keys without AUG, A, tanks aren't gonna be happy, but B, people are gonna look at their groups and go, okay, well, you know what, our tank is gonna struggle either way. It's probably better now for us to just do more damage. And that way we kill things faster. Yeah, and hopefully our tank, is able to rotate his cooldowns better than a longer fight, right? So my question is kind of same as yours, is AUG going to just become pointless, right? Like, well, AUG just feels stupid. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
I truly have a feeling that this will... I don't think it'll revert, but I think they'll make another change to it. I think it'll be like maybe 25%, right? Yeah. Or maybe it just helps the tank or just helps the healer, right?
Yep.
I think it's because I think you're right. I think even if you look at MDI in season 1, like there's still a lot of groups that weren't taking AUG in some of them. I mean, it was only a +10 and +11. Like
yeah, you're not like right for MDI. You want time, right?
You know, like I've timed 10s and 11s. Well, not 11s. I've timed 10s without AUGs, and I haven't had problems. Right?
Yeah, most. So, I think vast majority of my 10s have been timed without AUGs.
Yeah.
If anything, I probably have a higher rate of failing 10s with AUGs.
Yeah. Right. Really?
Yeah.
So
yeah, a couple extra things too that you have in here. I think you were maybe going to skip over, but I think we have the time just to touch them. The Gilded Crest from Delves, from what I understand, is it's going to be like almost nothing. We're talking like 1 or 2 crests from
it's only on 11s.
From like 11s, right?
Is what I saw.
From like 11s, right? Which, by the way, if you're playing a Blood DK, 11s are easy peasy. I don't care what anybody says. 11s are easy peasy. If you're playing anything else, like if you're like, oh, dude, let me go play my Holy Priest. Yeah, good luck. Right? Yeah. You're not doing that.
And it also just it goes back to the time constraint. Like if I'm getting more, Gilded Crest out of a 10 than I am a delve, and it takes me like twice as long to do the delves, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, right? Delves are going to be a lot slower. So we'll see how that works out. I don't hate if they're like, hey, because you can get heroic gear, here's like some crests. Yeah, that's fine. That's what that's.
Yeah. Whatever. I agree. Yep.
Dude, so the KSM mount is not a recolor like the last few expansions. It's actually like its own mount.
Yeah, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and you know what though? I feel mixed on it. I feel mixed because it is cool, and I like that they're making that change. I think for the future that change is awesome. I also think that the KSM mount this season currently was super cool. I just did not like the color scheme of it, and so I was really looking forward to like an alternate color scheme. I was like, all right, I'm ready. This is a cool mount. I just want like a different color.
Yeah, right.
I'm, part of me suspects we might still get another one the following season.
I think we will.
Because it is such a unique and cool design that they're not going to just one and done it. But also, I think they really wanted it to feel more goblin-y. I think they want to feel more goblin-y for the next patch. I'm surprised they didn't use the same skeleton though, or same base model, and just
that's true. Yeah,
and maybe rebuild it somewhat. But either way, it's a cool mount.
Yeah, no, I think it is.
It doesn't look like a flying mount. I wonder if it'll have like drive capability. I don't think it will. I don't think it will, but it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to have that.
Far-fetched to think that. Yeah. I hope it does. Actually, that'd be kind of.
However, as I've said before, and I'll always reiterate this. I don't think KSM mounts have to fly. Because you're almost never flying in dungeons. You're almost never flying in dungeons. So like,
you're not.
So dungeons are that time where you actually get to show off your ground mounts, because usually flying mounts have lame ground animations.
Yeah, they do.
And so it is cool. It is cool to have a few awesome ground mounts that you get to show off in dungeons.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Last major topic, right, of leaks and things coming out. Keys will no longer go down once you hit level 12, right? So they won't go below 12, I believe, if I recall correctly.
So we talked about this a lot in the guild chat, because I feel like there's a couple people in our guild chat, and I feel like me and you are always on the same page, but some other people are, and I'm not trying to knock those people unless your name is describing a hallway.
I think most people would disagree with us on this, if I'm being honest. I think a lot of people would disagree with us on it. I think we're right, but I think most people would disagree.
Well, this one's different though, because you have to get a certain rating before that kicks in.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's what I think. I didn't think people realized that. I think they kind of just read the title and was like, hey, because I thought that too. I was like, oh, I don't think this is the greatest thing ever. And then I read it and I was like, oh, wait, you have to hit like 2,800 rating before that kicks in.
Wow.
And I'm trying to find the article
so
just
really,
to confirm.
If you're right on that, which again, I'm hoping you are, but again, you might not be, right? It's possible you read that maybe somewhere else as somebody being hopeful.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find the article real quick. And I'm like struggling.
Because theoretically, I'm going to say theoretically because we have to confirm that. Theoretically, if you're right and it's a rating-based thing, I haven't heard that anywhere. But I also didn't read it. I've just heard it all third person. That would mean that crap. I'm trying to like read article titles while at the same time talk about this. I'll let you do the search.
I know.
But that would mean that really the point of it is for players that want to push over 11, right? So like, hey, you hit the rating to prove that you should be in this range. We're not going to keep pushing you back down into the affix range. That's what that's saying, right? My fear. Let's say that's not the case. Let's say you are absolutely wrong about it, right? Like you're totally wrong. That's not the case. There's no rating requirement no matter what, which is what I'm inclined to believe at the moment is the case. If that's how it is, which most people think it is, then my fear is like you're not gonna see keys in ranges that the key holder should be doing.
No, you won't.
Right. So you're gonna go queue into like a +5, right? And you can get into this +5, and I know people are listening. They're like, dude, +5s are easy for you, but you have to remember. And we had a big debate on this the other day. +5s are like the average for players.
Yes.
And if +5 is the average key range for players, that means that there's just as many people doing a 2 to 4 as there are people doing 6 to 20. Like put that in perspective real quick, right? And so. Think about all these players now who are going to be going in and they're like, oh, I want to go do this 5. I see a 5 list and they queue for the 5. And the key holder is only even in that 5 because they happen to +3 their 2 because some guildies help them out, right? That fails. That key falls apart. They're never going to be like, oh no, let me just go lower my key. They're always going to be like, no, I gotta push this. I gotta push this key. I gotta save it and see if I want to get this 5 done for Vault. And that's fine. I mean, I do the same thing with 10s. I'm like, hey, guys, no lever this 10, even though, I've timed them all at this point, so I don't know why I still no lever things. But I guess maybe it's my safety blanket. However, I worry that you're just going to see, like, people pushing keys into spots that maybe they shouldn't be, right? I have, and the example I gave is, like, the 2 to 5, right? Oh, somebody had 2, push up to a 5. They're not ready for a 5. That's fine. That will be annoying, but like one bad player in a 5 isn't going to kill it, right? However, what makes me nervous is, and you and I have encountered these people plenty of times, players that like will just throw them at things until they finally get it, right? So players that like, there's times that I'll see people on my friends list or in game, maybe through different communities I'm in, that they're like, I'm like looking at the keys they're doing. I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. I'm like, dude, I'm nervous to even do that, right? I would do that. And then I do a dungeon with them and I'm like, yo, I'm way better than this person. Like way better than this person. And then you realize that like all day long, they're just slamming their keys in groups. And 9 times out of 10, they're either getting kicked out of the group or they're bricking that person's key or whatever. But they keep re-queuing. They just re-queue and re-queue and re-queue and re-queue. Yeah. And that's what I'm afraid of is like you go and you see like an 8 posted, right? And you go queue up for this 8 and you get in there and you're like, dude, this guy should probably be in a 3 right now.
Yeah, right.
Right. That part of it to me is like, hey, if you hold the key, it's because you should be capable of doing that key, right? So we'll see. I'm sure weekly depletes are still a thing, right? So like, hey, weekly reset happens. It's Tuesday. I'm assuming naturally it still goes to like whatever your highest timed key was, or down from whatever your highest untimed key was, depending on which is higher.
Yeah. Yeah, so I did confirm that it's linked to a new achievement called War Within Keystone Legend Season 2, and it's from getting a 2850, and it's basically your reward is failing a key within the timer will no longer reduce if you're below a 12 for that season.
You know what? That's a good change. I'm for it. Absolutely. If that's the case, there's no negative to this. There's no negative.
Yeah, no, there isn't. It basically just means if you're like really good and you're pushing really high keys, you don't have to worry about not timing a 12. And I mean, 12s are hard. Yeah. So if you don't time a 12, I mean, I get it.
And for people who maybe haven't touched a 12, haven't attempted 12, haven't even thought about a 12 ever in your life, let me explain what makes 12 different than the others. 12 is the point in which the affixes shift. And so you never have the fun, you no longer have the fun Xal'atath Guile affixes, right? So those orbs aren't spawning. Other things aren't going on. Xal'atath isn't showing up making fun of you. Instead, everything just hits way harder, right? It just hits way harder. So going from an 11 to a 12 is really like going from like an 11 to like a 14 or something. It's a high jump. And I think Blizzard did it intentionally because they were like, you know what? We want this range to be people who just obsessively want to hyper push keys. If that's you and you want to do that, go for it. Have fun, right? But that player doesn't want to go back down to an 11. And not in the same way you or I don't want to lower our key. You or I lower our key are like, oh, no, we lowered our key. Now we have to push one up higher. No, for that player, it's like, oh, this way of playing, like the affixes and stuff just isn't what they want to do. They want that hyper hard challenge. And so my assumption is that 28, 50, whatever, is probably timing all 12s.
Uh-huh.
Right. In order to get that, you probably have to time
pretty
all
close
12s.
to it, yeah.
So it's basically saying, hey, if you time all 12s, then you can just set your baseline at 12, and you start from there. It's like a checkpoint. It feels like like an M plus checkpoint, which is kind of cool. That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, no, that's not. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I don't think this is a bad change whatsoever. I think it's kind of a good change.
I think key depletes as a whole, I think they're healthy. I think it's good. I think key depletes protect the key ecosystem. And I don't mean this in a bad way. I know it adds stress. Guess what? If you don't like stress, M plus isn't for you. That's okay, by the way. That's okay. There's delves, there's LFR, there's other things, there's world quests.
There's a ton of stuff,
right? There's world quests. Not every form of content has to fit every player. You can go do mythic. Just do mythic 0, right? Heroic dungeons. And that's fine.
That's why I don't get the mythic gear.
But Mythic Plus is fun. Like Mythic Plus is a fun experience, but part of that fun is the stress of like you gotta do it. You gotta pull it off. It's a challenge, right? It is a challenge, and challenge mode content can be stressful, but it's fun. And I think key depletions are a healthy thing to have. I think key depletions ensure that players are generally living within their means, right? They're generally going, hey, it's Blizzard's way of naturally pushing you into the content that you should be doing, right? And you're like, well, I want to be doing a 10. All right, well then stop failing them.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's my answer. If you're like, well, I want to be doing a 10, then stop breaking your keys.
Yeah.
Right. As I think Zortic in our Discord would say, get good. Just get good.
Get good.
And I know that sounds like aggressive or offensive, and you're like, oh, don't tell me to just get good. But the reality is like if you're constantly not timing your key, then that means that like, hey, you probably shouldn't be in that range yet. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you should never be there. It just means take a second before you run that key again. Look at your rotation. Look at how you're playing. Learn the dungeons. Are there mechanics that you're not doing? Because as keys go up, there's mechanics that will kill you that wouldn't kill you in the low key. Are there mechanics you're ignoring? Like, figure it out and then move forward, right? But I think if we treat M plus like delves and we just go, hey, there's no timer. Maybe there's a death count, right? I know that they were floating that around for a second. Maybe there's just a death count. The problem is the gameplay becomes totally different. It becomes slower. It becomes sluggish. You're going to stop before every pack. Pack pools are going to be smaller, right? You're going to lose the adrenaline. There's going to be no more adrenaline that comes with M+, which is, I think, a lot of the fun, right? A lot of the fun is how, intense it can get sweating, right? Like when your palms are sweaty and then M+, oh, that is the best, right? Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. However, it would radically change the content. And then if if there's like no punishment for not timing the key, right? And you're not being depleted, then like, what are you going to do, right? Like, there has to be something. There has to be something that like, gives you that challenge. So if you disagree with me, totally fine. But I'm actually really relieved. I think it's for the better. I'm really relieved to hear that In fact, I might be sharing that with some friends now that you brought it to my attention.
Oh, my goodness.
It's tied to it. By the way, though, I'm saying it's a good thing, and I wouldn't even have that achievement. I wouldn't even have it. I don't know what my rating is. Actually, I don't know what my rating is right now. Maybe I would have it. I don't know.
Hey, you know what else is a good thing? The holiday season. And I think if you're listening to this, you should enjoy your holidays, because I think we're probably out of time at this point.
Yes, we are. We are definitely out of time. We are well over. It is, dude. By the way, I'm excited for the holidays. Work always gets mad busy for me around this time of year, but I'm excited. It's always good. I'll have a couple days off work, which once we get past Christmas Eve, which will, I think, will be really good for me to kind of get some rest. I've been working a lot extra in prep for Christmas. But it's really good, and it's been a busy season for me as a whole. You shared what you've been up to lately, right? Trying to push your portals, but dude, listen, man, that Siren Isles ring wasn't the only ring I had going on this month. Let me just say that, dude. Your boy's Swag here is an engaged man now. That's right. That's right,
dude. That's pretty nuts.
So that's exciting as well. That's been really good, keeping the season busy. I'm also just stalling for a second because I don't actually remember what my rating is. So I'm like, quick. I guess I could have opened up Raider.io instead of logging into the whole game.
Oh my goodness!
Can I pull up on Raider.io faster than my game will load? That's actually the question that we need to find out. I'm like literally loading in. Oh, game's in and Raider.io is open at the same time. I'm 26-23, so I wouldn't even have that achievement.
Wouldn't even have it.
Wouldn't even have it. And you know what, though? I still say it's a good thing. Doesn't affect me, and I still think it's good.
Hey, you know what doesn't affect you? Jumping in the Discord because you're already in it.
That's right. You know what? A few quick plugs, because we haven't really plugged much lately. If you want to take part and ask questions for the podcast, I know we had a lot today, so we couldn't get to questions. But we have the questions for the pod channel. You can always ask your questions in there, or use the fan mail button in the podcast description on whatever platform you're watching on. You can do it there as well. If you use that fan mail button, though, please include your character's name so we know what to call you when we get those questions coming in. And then on top of that, I don't really plug it much, but I think I should start doing so. I also myself stream Swaglock streams on Twitch, and I do post to YouTube on occasion. So if you want to check out those platforms as well, we'll have them moving forward, I think, in our descriptions or something. If you would like to hang out with me on Twitch, it would be a blast. We play a lot of WoW. I love helping people in dungeons. So if you're like, oh, I really want to get into N+, I'm too nervous to, come hang on stream. I'll help you out. I got you.
Yeah. And your last shameless plug, hey, this is your official countdown that you have 2 weeks to buy the Brutosaurus mount if you haven't bought it yet.
2 weeks. You can do it, chicken.
2 weeks.
I know you got this. I believe in you. I'll see you on the Bruto in the next dungeon.
Dude, I'm like about to click the button, man.
It's Christmas, bro. It's Christmas.
I'm so close.
All right.
Anyways,
we will see you all after Christmas.